As busy people, business owners, and parents to young kids and athletes, how do you think about and set your personal fitness goals in this phase of life? We'll be diving into this and so much more in today's Q&A episode. I don't let being a business owner or being a parent dictate what I do or what I can and what I cannot do when it comes to fitness. If there's something that I want to do, I'm going to figure out a way to do it. Pre-pregnancy, my plan was to run a marathon this past December, and doing all of the things that we do with business, and having a 5-year-old and a 8-9-month-old at the time. And it was just a matter of making time for the things that were super important to me. So in my opinion, kids and being a business owner doesn't necessarily impact that. That's just my take though. What about you guys?
I think for me, it's not necessarily that being a business owner, being busy, being a parent impacts whatever my personal fitness goal is. I think that those things have the potential to impact how I go about those goals. So because I'm busy, because I have a long work day, because I'm a parent, that might impact my recoverability, which might impact the frequency of my training, the intensity of my training, the way I structure my training to make sure I can recover as best as I can. So I would say I don't want to say they don't matter at all, because I think they matter in how we approach our training, or at least my own training. But I wouldn't say those things dictate what my fitness goal is.
Yeah, definitely along the same lines. That was my big switch to Evolve Hybrid, switching from 5 or 6 training days a week, dropping that down to 4, making sure I'm mixing in cardio in an efficient way. So my goals didn't change. I just went about them differently. And it can be kind of eye-opening too. Like when I scaled back, I kind of did anticipate losing a little something. Maybe not strength, because typically if you have more time to recover, strength continues to improve, but maybe body composition wise, losing a little size when I dropped volume down. But I actually got stronger faster and improved body composition faster just with this new shift. So as you go through different phases, don't be afraid to try different things, because you kind of fall into new trends and things you may not have otherwise tried that work better for you personally. So just give you some additional insight. But I agree, as far as, phase of life, things going on with the business doesn't change the goal. It just changes the mechanism getting there.
All right. Lindsay asked us, this is a fun question. If you didn't have Levolution as a career or business, what would you see yourselves doing? I feel like this is really hard for us to answer, because if it wasn't Levolution, it would probably be something else business ownership wise. Like, that's just, I think, who all three of us are to our core.
So follow up to that, if it had to be a complete career change, not in the fitness industry.
Yeah, I think let's say not in the fitness industry. So for me, probably be something like videography, cameraography, photography. Just because that's pregnancy brain for you. But like, that's just like what I enjoy doing as a hobby. So I probably could do something business wise out of that, but
this is kind of tough, because I was obviously a teacher previously. So it's like, would I just still be teaching? And like, obviously wouldn't have left teaching. But there's a big part of me after having had babies now, that like, I could totally see myself as like a midwife or something with like bringing babies into the world.
Want to come be my doula?
Yes. Yes. Like doula midwife. I could very much see myself doing that.
This is tough, because entrepreneurship has been in my blood from day one. Like when I was a kid, my idea of fun was sitting down with a notebook and writing down business ideas and, what could I sell and how many would I need to sell to make X amount, and I wouldn't have to get another job. Like this has been since I was a kid. Kai actually has a cash register he loves playing with now. So the other day, I kind of told him that, I'm like, here you go, like draw some pictures of what you'd want to create a business with. And I wanted him to kind of just go through that mental exercise. But if I had to be in something entirely, it'd be sports. Either a coach or playing. Maybe I'd still be playing baseball. If not baseball, I'd probably be fighting, like professional, not like in the streets,
UFC.
like MMA. Yeah,
Street fights.
just walking around the streets throwing haymakers. You look like you want to brawl. Let's go.
Maybe old Josh would do that.
Old Josh did that. That wasn't wood. That was just a Tuesday.
That was just a Tuesday.
Oh, man.
Yeah.
Yeah. I think it's hard to think about what life could look like, but I think we all
Or I'd
love
be
what
like-
we do so much. So it's hard to even like fathom what that could be. All right, next question. Breastfeeding nutrition, as the ladies stated they'd make a pod on in the last postpartum episode. Yes, we will definitely do that. But she asked, I'd love to learn all about this more and what to expect for it, / the hormone profile happening during breastfeeding and how that impacts training, nutrition, mood, etc. It will be a full episode.
I know. I'm almost like, do we just save this for its own separate episode?
Let's do like the Cliff Notes version,
Yeah.
just a couple takeaways.
So a few things. One, your caloric needs are very high during breastfeeding. They're higher during breastfeeding than they are even in late stage, final trimester of pregnancy. Caloric needs increase, with each trimester, and then postpartum, they're even higher. So that's where Alessandra and I started having this conversation of like, hey, we tell women, make sure your calories are high enough, especially if you're training, because you're breastfeeding, you have milk production, you need to recover, you need to perform, you need enough calories to do that. And then you have on the flip side, someone saying, but I want to lose weight, and to lose weight, I need to be in a deficit. So that I think is what we were like, oh, that could kind of be a whole episode. I think first and foremost, it depends how soon postpartum you are. If you are in that like immediate postpartum period, which I would consider like at minimum the first 3 months, I even like to say like 3 to 6 months to be safe. I don't love to see anyone dieting like sooner than that 6-month mark, because your body needs to recover. You're trying to likely get back in a good groove with training. And I don't think that's usually the best time to drop calories. You're in this breastfeeding groove. You're likely not sleeping super well, and adding a deficit on top of that typically doesn't go well. So I don't like to see someone diet or even try to really engage in an intentional deficit until at least 6 months postpartum.
And notice how she said intentional deficit. Like if you're focusing on a lot of the health basics and fueling your body, and maybe you're feeling so well that milk supply is great and you are strength training again and you're feeling great in the gym, you can see shifts in your body composition. That's not to say like you're stuck at what you looked like 1 week postpartum until we say so. Like, no, that's not what we mean. But there are so many positive things that can happen from fueling well and pushing hard in the gym, rather than just jumping into that deficit and trying so hard to lose the fat and lose the baby weight, if you will. So it's more of like a mindset shift of, okay, I'm going to focus on dialing my habits in, getting strong, getting consistent with the gym again. If I'm not doing anything at all right now, eating just a healthy, balanced diet and balanced meals in general. So all of these things will positively impact you, rather than just slashing things down and trying to balance milk supply and losing the weight and just all of the more negative effects of dieting, if that makes sense.
I think also people get nervous to reintroduce exercise postpartum because they've heard that it can impact their milk supply. And I want to just throw it out there now that it's not exercise that is going to inherently harm your milk supply. Where people run into an issue is when they reintroduce exercise, they also start dieting, and now they have added a deficit on top of it, or they are restricting calories now, and restricting calories is when we may see a dip in supply, depending on how steep that deficit is, depending on what recoverability looks like. And the other factor, this is similar but different, another factor to consider is that most people are kind of ravenous, really, really hungry when they're breastfeeding, especially in those beginning months. And hunger the ability to manage hunger during a deficit can make or break the success of that deficit. And so the other sort of flip side thing to keep in mind, like Alessandra said, is that habits are going to play a huge role here. And I think a lot of times people think, oh, well, if I'm not cleared to work out until 6 weeks, like I can't do anything the first 6 weeks. Or if my pelvic floor still doesn't feel great after 3 months, I shouldn't do anything. And like Alessandra said, there's this big mindset component of it. I would urge you to not take an all or nothing mentality postpartum of like, I can either do everything or I'm not going to do anything at all, because you can still focus on healthy habits. And without being in a deficit, without being in an intentional deficit, if you are approaching those habits with intention, going on walks when you can, adding protein to all of your meals, adding in color to all of your meals, and those other big rocks, as we like to call them, you very, very likely will see your body composition shift. You very, very, very likely will see your body composition improve without you even necessarily trying to be in a deficit or trying to lose weight.
Yeah, preach. We will definitely dive into this topic more in depth for you guys, though, either before I pop this baby out or while I'm going through the breastfeeding journey. Maybe that'll be a good time to dive in.
While you're in labor.
Maybe not that
Let's
time.
record it then.
All right. Madison asked us, she said, I posted in the group earlier this week that I have a leg injury and got some really helpful tips, but it would be great if you could cover this too. Mainly that I have a leg injury and I can't even get my steps in. I've been doing upper body and core workouts, but not getting my steps leaves me not feeling my best and takes a toll on me mentally. My appetite has also been really low / strange, I suppose, since I'm moving less. I want to avoid losing muscle if possible. Taking any and all tips. What do you guys got?
So I don't know the nature of this leg injury. I don't know if it's quad, if it's muscle related, if it's joint related, like is it knee, ankle? Did we break a tibia, fibula? Like I feel like I need a little more context here, but a few things. Number one, if we're trying to avoid muscle loss or muscle atrophy, working that muscle in any capacity would be helpful. So I know you're saying you can't walk. Would it be possible to cycle on a bike because it's non-weight bearing? Maybe, depending on the injury. I don't know. Is it possible to, if it's a ankle issue or if it's a knee issue, like again, without knowing the nature of the injury, it's hard to prescribe exercise that might be okay. But if there is something that you can do to stimulate those muscles in any capacity, it would be helpful for muscle retention. The other thing that you could still do is work your other side. So if the injury is on your right leg, can we still work the left leg? And obviously you wouldn't be able to squat or deadlift, but could you sit on a leg extension machine if you have gym access and do a single leg extension on your good leg, a single leg hamstring curl on your good leg, because that neuromuscular circuitry can actually help to retain muscle on that other side, your injured side, and can actually help with recovery too. So I'm always a big fan of still moving in whatever capacity we can. I love that you're still getting in upper body workouts, getting in core workouts. Is there anything that we could still do lower body wise that would be comfortable, tolerable, and safe for you? Would be kind of my first tip.
Abstract. Has there been any data showing benefits to retaining muscle with like an electromagnetic stimulator?
I haven't firsthand looked into that. I know that there are lots of studies that are being done with EMG. It doesn't necessarily equate to hypertrophy though. The flip side of that is, would it equate to potential rehab? Like we do see it used more so in a rehab setting. So
yeah, it should be beneficial for recovery. I'm curious,
Right.
like you see the doofuses with the ab belt on and like, oh, this is how you build. I'm not saying to that extent, but
30,000 sit-ups in 30 seconds.
in 30 seconds. Okay. Just to the extent of potentially stimulating that enough while you're eating enough protein to contain.
Maybe.
to
I
prevent
wouldn't say,
atrophy.
yeah, like if you were a bodybuilder trying to do that to gain better biceps, I would say no. From a muscle recovery stimulus standpoint, maybe, but I'm not super familiar with that research.
So aside from that, you kind of alluded to it, but just keeping protein intake high, doing your best. And it sounds like you can't move, obviously, too much. No walks. Are you on crutches? Like, can you do some short crutches walks? Can you do some shadow boxing in a chair? Like, at the very least, to move your body. You said your appetite is really impacted. So you might feel silly, you might sound silly, but literally, a few rounds, if you can do it for 10 minutes, 15 minutes, just throwing some punches, it'll make a difference.
All right, next question is from, Jen asked us 3 questions, and they're all great questions, so we're going to answer them. Number 1 from Jen, she said, you mentioned in the last Q&A that intentional cardio means keeping your heart rate elevated for an extended period of time. For someone new to running, people talk about paying attention to the heart rate zones, and if it gets elevated, to walk in order to bring it back down. Does this still count as cardio if we're bringing the heart rate up and then back down and then back up again and so on? Yes.
Mm-hmm.
Yes. I would say
Absolutely,
that's still
yes.
I would say that's still cardio. I also wouldn't feel like super, super pressured for you to feel like you have to bring it back down.
Yeah, I think she just means bringing it probably down to a zone 2, I would assume. That's just what we talked about, I think, in the last episode. So if she's trying to
Yeah.
improve her...
Walking may be zone 2 for some people, especially if
Right.
you are newer to exercise. So I don't want you to feel like if zone 2 is walking and you're trying to bring it down below zone 2, and that means you're walking baby steps or like stopping. I don't
Super
think
slow,
you necessarily
yeah.
have to do that. Yeah, that's what I mean. Like, I don't know how much you should feel pressured to necessarily bring it back down. If walking is getting your heart rate up, like you can just keep walking.
Yeah.
Yeah, especially if you've got a ton of elevation on your walk, or if you're wearing a weighted vest. Like, just because you're walking doesn't mean your heart rate can't elevate to a cardio zone.
Well, she's
Yeah.
running, so, but anyway. Number 2, you talked about true moderation a ton on the podcast. How would you encourage someone who currently wants to have a sweet after every meal to not do that? After the holidays, our house has a ton of sweets, so would you just throw them away? During a normal time, I would just limit buying them / having them in the house, but right now they're way too accessible. I also crave them and I don't know how to change that. Thanks. Stop breathing into the microphone.
Straight into the garbage. How do you know it's not Joelle?
I knew it was you.
Straight into the garbage can. I'm the same way. Like, if it's in the house, like, I'm more susceptible to caving into those cravings. So, like, no leftovers taken home if we're away and someone's got whatever fun desserts. Thank you. We enjoyed it. It's staying here. Not bringing it home. If it is here, like after Halloween, like, gets to stay here for a few days and then the rest goes into the garbage can. But when you're surrounded by it, it's much easier to just cave, especially if it's after every meal. Like, that is not moderation. Even if it's a bite size, Snickers or whatever it is, that's not moderation. So get your fix, toss it, start fresh. And then when you want it again, because you're not surrounded by it, go get it. But you're going to have that barrier to entry because it's not in the house. And that's what true moderation is going to be. So especially if you're caving after every single meal, like, that's an easy one. You throw that shit right in the garbage can.
I once heard someone say, like, they felt like they were wasting food throwing it away, and my response was, well, is your body a garbage can? Like, you don't need to eat that food in order for you to feel better about not wasting it, if that makes sense. So you can either throw it away in the actual garbage or feel like you have to eat it and essentially throwing it away in your body.
And you're going to feel like a garbage can.
When I was still working at the school, anything that I didn't want in my house, I would just like bring to the main office.
Yeah, or give it to someone. Yeah.
Like, if you work in an office setting or something like that, where you can just like bring it in or bring it somewhere or donate it to the school, like something where you can, if you don't want to throw it in the garbage, there might be very well somewhere else that you can bring it, your local library, maybe an unopened bag of candy. Like, I'm sure, I would imagine they would take it. But I'm also a big fan of, changing it in your environment, because it sounds like it being in your environment is cueing you to want it. And what we do know from like health behavior change research is that it is a lot easier to change your environment than it is to change a habit. So you're saying like, hey, how do I change your habit? And you'll notice all three of us are like, change your environment, because that will be easier than trying to just stop the habit of craving candy.
You're also going to crave it less. Like once it's out of the house and you go a couple days without it, you're going to crave it less. Right now, it's just, it's part of the routine.
Yeah.
All right. Jen's third question. She said, sorry. Don't be sorry, Jen. Thanks for listening. If an exercise said 8 reps at an RPE of 9, and with 25 pounds, you can do 12 as an RPE of 9, but then you go up to 30 pounds and you can only do 6, is it better to do more reps at a lower weight or push yourself and do fewer reps at a higher weight?
Doesn't matter. As long as you're at that RPE 9, you can keep pushing the reps or drop the weight. Just stay in that zone and make sure you are seeing an increase in volume.
Over time, you should be able to get more reps with that heavier weight too. So I wouldn't overly stress it. It will come.
Yeah. If I had to pick one, I agree it could be either one. If I had to pick one, as long as the reps are well executed on that 30 pounds and you have 6 solid reps, I would actually continue with doing the higher weight, the 6 solid reps. And if in, next week you could do 7 and next week you could do 8 reps and eventually get yourself back to whatever the prescribed rep range was, maybe 10 to 12 or 12 reps, you will work yourself up to that. But I do think, and the reason I'm choosing that is because I think sometimes people get stuck in that and they're like, well, I guess I should do the one that I know I could complete the reps of. But to what point? Like, so now you're doing 15 reps there. Now you're doing 20 reps there. And you could have likely gone for the next weight, again, as long as form and technique is in a good spot, and started increasing reps from there. So I would say as long as form is good at the bumped up weight, I would personally go for the bump up.
I agree.
Lindsay asked us, for someone who has a sedentary job, if you get a 30-minute break in your 8-hour day and you want to take a walk, is it better to break it up and do 3 10-minute walks or 1 30-minute walk? It does not matter, in my opinion.
I don't think it really matters.
Nope.
Whatever's easier for you to do. Yep.
Easier you enjoy. If you need that long walk, unwind, take it. If you want chunks, take the chunks.
Yeah, that's one of those, like, there's not really, this battle of practical versus optimal is, oftentimes a concern. I think either one of these works and neither is going to make or break progress towards something. So preference and practicality is what's going to be key for you.
Probably depends on the day too, especially if it's a higher stress job. If you're like, I need to get away, take the 30 minutes. Or if you're feeling pretty good and you just want to stimulate some blood flow, break it up into those 3 chunks.
Chelsea said, tips for keeping up with protocols during a new season of life. For context, I'm transitioning from being a full-time nursing student to full-time nurse, so 3 12-hour days a week, but still want to be in a calorie deficit. Tips. Transitions can be tough. You have to make sure you set some realistic expectations as far as like how you're going to achieve that deficit, and if it even makes sense to continue the deficit while you're in this big transition period. Maybe it's something where you take a little diet break for a couple weeks or a month until you got your groove and with your new schedule, and then you go back into the deficit. But if you're like hard pressed on continuing the deficit, I would say planning ahead and making sure you have a plan when it comes to knowing what you're going to eat, when you're going to eat it. I know that's kind of hard to do as a nurse, I'm sure. So in my opinion, if you were my client, I would probably encourage you to take a little diet break, at least until you get your groove. But what do you guys say?
So she is a Levolution client, by the way. She's a one-on-one client with us. So you have the benefit of having this discussion with your coach directly. We could all obviously give you our input on this. But Chelsea, I believe you're working with Courtney. So definitely chat with Courtney. She might echo the same thing Alessandra just said of like, hey, maybe let's get into a good groove with your work schedule first. I can't remember Courtney just had a transformation post with you the other day. But I can't remember if you're currently in a deficit or you were just kind of like at maintenance these last few weeks and establishing those habits. I know you had like great increases in your step count and what you were eating and so on. So if you're currently at maintenance, I would maybe stay there the first few weeks and then come down into that deficit when you're more adjusted. If you're already in the deficit, it might benefit you to just stay there. It might benefit you to pop back up to maintenance. You could always look, nothing that you do is set in stone. So you could always do what you're doing now calorically. Let's say you're already in a deficit and you start this new work schedule and you're like, yep, that's not going to work. Let's pop back up to maintenance for a few weeks. Nothing that you decide today has to be what you decide to do next week or a month from now. So definitely chat with your coach about, based on what she has seen, based on your stressors, based on your new schedule, go from there. But definitely chat with her. I think you have a lot of different options, but either way, it's going to be an adjustment, whether you're in a deficit or not. Adjusting to a new schedule, out of school, into a new job, into a new setting, into a new environment, into a new work schedule, into a new sleep schedule. All of that is going to feel like a little bit of a change. So whatever you think is going to keep you the most grounded and anchored in routine is what you should do.
Yeah, and if you're down to continue, like, I don't think there's anything wrong with trial by fire. Try to organize ahead of time. Again, if you fail to prepare to fail. So just have an idea of what your schedule is going to look like, when you should be able to eat. Obviously manipulate that, fine tune it as you go throughout the next couple of weeks, and just give yourself a little more grace. Like, it's not going to be perfect in all likelihood for the first couple of weeks with this transition, but you can still aim for it. Like, you can still prepare for it and you can still get as close as you can. And then, you've already got that ingratiation period with the new schedule in attempting to be in a deficit, and you know what speed bumps to look out for.
Lindsay asked us a squat question. What is proper form, really depth, for a back or front squat? As I'm increasing weight, I find I'm not getting as deep or low with every squat. Is it better to stay at the heavier weight to keep working on squat depth, or drop lower so all reps are at the same depth? Hope that makes sense. Lindsay is one of our app users. She actually tagged me in a story of her squats, I think this past week, and I responded to it. So she might have gotten this answer already, but she actually stayed at the same weight or maybe even decreased weight and focused on her range of motion, which is what I would suggest here. So squat depth, essentially your knee joint and your hip crease are equal, at least parallel, or lower. But that's like when you, like, for instance, when you compete in a powerlifting competition meet, they're looking for that to be parallel to be counted as like an actual rep. Lower is obviously fine, but you don't want to be above that. So if you're struggling to hit parallel, then I would definitely drop the weight and work on range of motion. That's still progress. I think a lot of people think the only way to progress is to increase our weight, but if you're improving your form, like, that's incredible. That's a great form of progress.
And a lot of times people think about progress specifically as like weight and reps, but it's overall work performed. So if you're reducing the distance during range of motion for a specific lift, any lift, you're reducing the amount. So 10 reps at 75% range of motion is entirely different from 10 reps at 100% range of motion. It's an entirely different amount of work performed. So definitely focus on optimizing form, optimizing range of motion for all of your lifts. If you find yourself cheating the last couple for something like a curl, not the end of the world. But if it's constantly compromised every time you increase weight, then you weren't ready to increase the weight.
Yeah. The only circumstance in which I would say that you don't need to drop the weight lower so that all reps are the same depth is if you were already below parallel and now you're like, oh, well, now I'm not squatting ass to grass. Should I lay off the weight? As long as you're still hitting that parallel, you could keep the weight. If we're starting to get like inching above parallel, then that's when I'd pull the weight and focus on better range of motion and tempo in the lighter squat to progress through, and then add weight.
Kaylee asked us, how do you guys set boundaries with family members or friends when it comes to food for your kids? For example, when grandma and grandpa want to load them up on sugary snacks all the time, or try to go against your policy. Josh, this is a you question.
This is a Josh question for sure.
This has gotten easy over time because it's just my role. It's just a conversation of like, you can show your love in other ways. Like, they don't need a bowl of sugar to love you. Like, go read a book, go on an adventure, go for a walk. I'm very clear with my family. Like, yeah, this may seem extreme to you, but everything I do, like, this is my wheelhouse. Like, live this way or don't. These are my kids. This is my wheelhouse. These are the things that I've already explored. I've already done the research on, and I'm going to put my kids in the best position to be successful. And it hasn't had to be like a difficult conversation to the point where like you're going to follow this or you're going to have like supervised, conversions. What is the word here? Supervised
Playtime.
whatever,
Like,
playtime.
this?
It's like it hasn't gotten to that point, but obviously we have very respectful family members across the board. And again, they might think I'm being a hard ass in certain areas, but at the end of the day, they respect it. They know why I'm doing it, which I appreciate very, very much. So it's having that conversation. It's just getting that respect from whoever the family member is, grandma, grandpa, whatever. Here's why we're doing certain things. Like, long term, we're just looking out for our kids. And that's something we're all on the same team with. It's doing what's best for our kids. They understand that, they appreciate it. So having a respectful conversation, getting that respect reciprocated, and just being on the same page moving forward. Like, yes, I'm the hard ass, but at the same time, it's not really a hard conversation.
I also think our parents respect us and how we feel about that stuff. By the same token, you may feel differently about this, Josh. I also feel like we have to pick and choose our battles. And if I come at everything, you're not going to want to listen to me at all. And you're not going to want to like take my kid at all. And I don't want to like put my parents or Brant's parents in that position either, where they're like, they feel like they're walking on eggshells and they can't do anything, or they can't, like, there's a part of me that's like, if Sloan is sleeping at your house, like, what you choose to make for dinner, I know you're not like buying fried chicken for dinner and French fries, but like what you choose to have for dinner, whatever. You want to give her a juice box, whatever. It was one day, she'll live. I can't come at everything, but I can choose what you give her in my house. Like, if you bring something to my house that I don't necessarily want to give, or like sometimes my mom will pick up these like giant sugar cookies covered in sprinkles from the deli, and she'll be like, look what I brought you, Sloan. And I'm like, yeah, we'll have this later. And sometimes
Later never happens.
sometimes it doesn't make it to the table because it was in my house. But I think in general, yeah, it's just a conversation like, hey, if you are going to give her juice, can you buy like the low sugar option? I know you like to have juice boxes on hand, or like, hey, snack wise, can you make sure that you have Go-Go's and yogurt pouches in the house? And like, they have those things on hand for when the girls come over. They're snacks that they have at home. And it's just, yeah, it's as simple as that. It's as simple as a conversation. But also, like, if you are watching her at your house, I know I can't control everything. So some of it is like a little bit of letting go, as long as it's never positioned as like, oh, come here, come have an Oreo at my house. We know mommy doesn't let you have these. If I ever find out that happens, then there will be an issue, because don't ever, ever, ever put my kid in a position where you're like pinning them against me or the choices that we make in our house. That would be a big issue for me.
Yeah, for sure. And that's same philosophy. Like, when they're out and they're, it's just easy to grab some pizza. Cool. That's fine. It's once in a while. That's the moderation thing. And even like snacks and stuff, we got on the same page. My mom will ask, like, what do you guys keep here? I want to make sure I get some of that stuff. And her parents are the same way. Her dad is someone we have to retrain a little bit.
He's been much better.
He has been much better.
My dad just loves food, and he
loves food,
Italian,
and that's his love
and
language. It's his love language.
That is his love language. But he also knows, like, he now looks at the ingredients and he'll send me like things that we know he knows we buy already, of like, oh, look at this new thing that came in that's like similar. So we've come a long way with friends.
It started with the quadruple stuffed Oreos mixed with X, Y, and Z, and like, oh, we got to try these. Yeah, no, thank you. We're cool. And now we've scaled back to like much more aligned. So everybody's been awesome. Like, I have zero complaints. We're all on the same page. But exactly like you said, Joelle, it's pick your battles. Like, can we get ice cream and pizza? Of course. Like, you're not doing this every day. You guys are out having a good day. Like, go have it. It's fine.
Yeah. All right. Last question of the day is from Sarah. She said, Alessandra, because I know Joelle isn't a runner girly. How do you keep your running endurance up while not training for a race? I just did my first half last Sunday. It was amazing. And training for / running for that race changed me, but I think I'm going to take a break from training for another race. Hours of running multiple times per week started to wear on me by the end of training, but I don't want to lose what I built. Do you keep like one maintenance long run per week? I don't know what to do. I'm feeling kind of aimless. So yeah, this is totally fair. And like, you can run without ever running a race. If you just want to run and be happy, like that's great. Race training can just add another layer of it. As fun as it can be, it definitely is something that, there's like an end goal for. So it can, if you're constantly like signing up for all the races, it can start to get to the point where you feel really burnt out. So I'm glad that you're aware that you want to take a break right now. But I think ultimately you just have to decide like where you want to keep that threshold. So like, do you want to be able to just go out and run 8 miles or 10 miles and like have that kind of be your long run max distance to maintain? Like you have to kind of set a realistic set point there, and then from that point you can kind of construct how many runs per week you should do, what you have time for right now. So like, what season of life you're in. Are you going to completely flip-flop and switch to focus on strength a little more? If so, running volume might have to come down a little bit. So it kind of depends like what your non-race fitness goals are and where you want to be as far as maintaining that endurance. But you can definitely scale back, number of times you're running per week as well as overall distance. It just depends on like what you want that to look like and what makes sense for this phase of life.
I'm not a runner girly, but scientifically, I will just put it out there to maybe have some expectation of some endurance lost. Because aerobic capacity is like the first to go when we're not training it,
Right.
more so than strength. Like if we were to
It's
have
a couple
time off
weeks,
from,
right?
yeah, like time off from strength training versus time off from endurance training, we lose the endurance much faster. So I don't say that to scare you. I say that to keep realistic expectations that like you're not going to stay in race shape endurance, so to speak, if you're not training that way. That's just scientifically, that just is what it is. You could still, I'm sure, maintain endurance and cardiovascular fitness, but maybe not at the same capacity if you're not training at that capacity.
Side related, not entirely related, but your blog just went up, Joelle, on concurrent training. So mechanisms of that adaptation, AMPK versus mTOR, timing of it all. So if you guys are unaware, we have a blog that goes up every single day. We're starting to look like that Healthline website. That's what we're turning into.
Just a blog.
I have a third question, too, that popped up. I know I threw this up late. So Olivia asked, do you adjust your macros through different training phases? I am training for a half marathon and getting into 20-plus mile weeks and wondering if I should be adjusting macros during this phase. If so, do you increase calories as a whole or just increase carbs, decrease fats, etc.? Thank you.
For marathon training, yes, calories should go up and carbs are going to be your main energy source. So I would probably primarily focus on increasing those first. And with that, like you might get to the point where your carbs are super high and you have to increase fats along with carbs. So it sort of depends where you're at, but in general, yes, if your running volume is going up and your mileage is going up and you have a big goal like a marathon, then yeah, you should be increasing carbs.
All right, we cruised through that pretty quick, so we are going to do a ChatGPT sponsored this or that. We'll go Joelle, Alessandra, myself in that order, and we'll blast through some of these that aren't super cheesy.
Joelle's like, shoot, I'm going first.
I'm scared.
Current phase of life, rapid fire. Joelle, coffee or breakfast first? Or for you, matcha?
Breakfast.
Breakfast. This is a silly one because everyone knows the answers, but night owl or early bird?
Early birds.
Do
all
it
of us.
tired.
Answering for all three of us.
Gonna go ahead and just skip that one.
Cold
Minimalist
plunge or
wardrobe.
not?
Yeah, I'm in a not cold plunge phase right now. I'm after being sick, my
He's
body's
still
got to.
recovering.
I'm still
Yeah.
recovering. All right, minimalist wardrobe or closet full of options.
Minimalist.
I don't believe you.
Minimalist.
I do not believe you.
Well, you didn't let me finish.
There's no.
Yeah,
It's
I have
this
a
or
but,
that. There's
but
no.
I
There's
thought-
no but.
yeah. I
Joel
wanted
knows
to
the rules.
provide context, but I felt
No
as though I was
context.
not allowed.
Minimalist with real people clothes. Maximalist with workout clothes.
Yes.
That's maximalist. That's
I was
just
going to
just
say my
maximalist. Period.
closet looks like maximalist, but considering I use 4 things from my closet, minimalist.
I was gonna say after Christmas, I got my 4 new shirts and a couple pants. Like I'm minimalist, but I can even say that because you have 95% of the closet, so I can just say minimalist. Period. Books or podcast?
That's a tough one.
Right now,
My mood.
today's mood.
In the car, podcast.
You
Hopefully
guys are
not
so
reading
bad
a
at this
book while
game.
I'm driving.
I'm going to say books.
Books. City life or countryside retreat?
Country, baby.
Country.
From the city girl.
I am not
Country.
a city girl. I'm not. I lived there.
That's how Josh
forever.
knows you. That's how he met
know.
you.
But like, I'm a suburb girl.
That's so much city.
Anything that's not farm country is city. to
If
me.
you don't have bobcats and deer that there's live in your backyard, that's city.
I'm just a white suburban mom.
Cook at home or dine out?
Cook at home. Oh, sorry, Joelle. You go first.
I like a dine out.
I'm a home
On the
girl.
reg, but I like it. I enjoy it.
Cook at home, definitely. And work-life balance or hustle culture?
That's in the wrong crowd.
Is it what do we prefer or how do we live
like-
currently?
I don't know. I think it's what this current phase of life is.
ChatGPT really let us down.
We're hustling.
We're in a hustle.
day we're
phase of
hustling.
life, all of us.
So I found these things that go over our mics. We could brand them with TFL.
I was going to ask you if we should get those, and I thought you were going to make fun of me.
No, it's currently on my phone, waiting
Like
for a
little,
conversation.
it looks like the newscaster, like little
Yes.
square box. Yeah.
Yep.
Oh, that's cool. Would
The,
that work
Joelle would have
online?
to turn her mic upside down.
No, it's vertical, so she could just slide it up.
Oh, okay.
It's a vertical logo. But they're like $40.
Tried to move mine once and make it face the other way, and we couldn't hear anything. I think we, and then
That doesn't seem to make any sense.
Yeah.
I
Why?
don't really know.
Anywho,
I didn't know if that was worth a $140 investment, so I didn't immediately pull the trigger without talking to you guys. But it would be pretty cool.
I
Get a
feel like
logo.
for maybe a lot cheaper, we could just get a TFL sticker and stick it on our mics, and
that would be
the same thing.
not as good looking.
Yeah,
No,
that'd be
I don't
super
do that.
cheesy.
The fitness league.
Want me to take a milk carton and make our own little boxes and put a
We could ask
sticker on
Kai's
it?
class to do it for us.
We could have Sloan and Kai design them.
Come on, great. All right, homies. Hope you enjoyed this episode. As always, got that 3-episode rule. If you're listening beyond 3 episodes, please leave us a quick 5-star review. Again, the goal is, or the point is, that you've probably gotten some value that you are applying in your life if you've listened beyond 3 episodes. And leaving the review, sharing it, just helps someone else find it. And also the things that we do. So if you're listening to this, you're applying certain things, but you want some additional guidance, we have one-on-one coaching. We have our app. The app is more, do it yourself. We've got the guidance in there for you, access to all of the different programs. You get a free month with the code EVOLUTION or LBLTN. Those will both get you a free month if you are a new user. Jump in there, try it out. Project B on the way. We will have more details to share with you shortly. And then one-on-one coaching is obviously our premier option for those who want to shortcut the trial and error. They want to coach an expert in their corner to listen to them, hear them, and actually, apply certain things that fit within their lifestyle to create the biggest ROI and get that, the end game, the results we've been looking for that we can maintain for the rest of our lives. So details to those guys are in the show notes. Where can they find you guys?
I'm at Alessandra Skutnik.
At Joelle Samantha.
At Josh Skutnik.
Everything else you need
every
is
time.
linked in the show notes.
Every time.